Sorry, I got all marble mouth. Like between the loud
That's
traffic and like and words that I was tripping over.
Would you like to have a sip of your beverage?
I'd like to have a sip of your beverage that you bought for me.
All right.
I need one of those like super long curvy straws and just be like, look over there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Has like palm fronds and a naked lady clinging to it.
I like that. Yeah. I like that.
I look for that in my straws and also my linings of my neckties and then also my writing implements.
Yeah. Okay, good to know. So the next gift I get for you, I've got several options.
Hint. That's right. Hey everyone, it's Elliot.
And Todd. Welcome to Two Designers Walk Into a Bar, an ongoing conversation about pop culture and iconic design. Signs, everywhere a sign.
Today we're going to be talking about a couple of colorful visual alphabets.
Not typefaces, but the kinds of alphabets that are their own languages.
Created to solve specific problems, one works face-to-face and the other from a distance.
So give the high sign to the bartender and order up a couple of ocean breezes.
We're bringing you the histories of American Sign Language and nautical flags.
Back here in the bar.
Okay, Todd, so you grew up in the South. I know boating, especially in North Carolina, is huge.
Yes.
Are you a nautical person? Are you a boating person?
No, not really. Not to the extent of where I would recognize knots or things like that.
Okay. You don't know in general, you don't know what a knot looks like?
No, I know one kind of knot, but I don't
okay.
know like all of the kinds of knots. If you wanted me to tie a monkey fist or something like that, I would have no idea how to do that. I don't even know why you would want to do
Isn't that a Bruce Lee movie?
It should be. If it's not, let's start writing.
Yeah, we should.
Right now.
Yeah, a little fan fiction. Okay. The reason I ask is because I want to talk about nautical flags.
Okay.
So my guess is if you're not a nautical person, if you don't know a lot about boating. Oh, and for the record, even though I grew up on Lake Erie, I am not. I didn't grow up on Lake Erie because then I would be a nautical. I would be next door to in view of the Great Lakes. Occasionally I went out on boats. I knew a few people who had boats.
Yeah.
But I never. Yeah, I couldn't tell you a square knot from. I was not a Boy Scout. I was not a sailor.
Yeah.
The only knot I know of is the one you're going to put on my head if I don't jump into this episode.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. Luckily, you could tie your shoes, right?
Barely.
Okay. All right.
So nautical flags. So I knew about these things.
Uh-huh.
But I mainly knew about them because they're just interesting looking. They're really, really colorful.
Yeah.
You go to a marina and you might see some, or you go to Red Lobster, Long John Silver's, or some of these nautical themed restaurants. Maybe you'll see them or whatever. But I knew they had meanings, but I never really thought about it. I just liked them because they always just looked cool.
Mm-hmm.
But these flags are actually an international language, which totally makes sense because they're visual in nature, right?
Yeah,
you think about how many ships are not registered in the United States or sail in international waters. You really need this international language neutral way of communicating.
Yeah.
And all these flags are also different, right? Again, I don't know. I'm not a captain. I imagine you can get a license or whatever to sail, even if you're colorblind.
Mm-hmm.
So these flags, in addition to having unique colors, also have unique patterns on them. So that even if, you have some sort of partial color blindness, you can still figure out what the different flags mean. So there's this standardized system, and the idea is that they convey messages between ships or between ship and shore, which makes sense with regard to why they'd be, at a marina or something like that.
Right.
And each of the flags corresponds to a letter of the alphabet or a numeral, and they can be flown either individually or in combination to spell out information or convey some specific pre-established meanings. I think, again, this totally makes sense. Sort of like Morse code or some of these other, whiskey, tango, foxtrot, right? The NATO alphabet or whatever that's called. I mean, it makes sense to have this sort of standardization. I just really love the fact that it's flags. So
yeah.
This is known as the International Code of Signals. So again, I'm sure came from semaphore and that sort of thing, right? Flag signaling.
Can I ask you a real quick question? And I know you're going to probably say more about this, but so in the English alphabet, there are 26 letters, I think.
Yeah.
Are there actually 26 flags?
Last time I checked.
I haven't counted lately.
Oh, okay.
But are there actually 26 flags, like you said, one for each letter, or is it a particular combination of like two flags make a letter?
Yeah. No, that's a really great question.
Okay.
So there are, yes, one flag for each letter of the alphabet.
Wow.
Now, these are square flags.
Yeah.
So, 26 flags, little square flags, and they represent the letters A through Z.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the numbers, just to mix those up so you can differentiate again from a distance, if you think about ship to shore, someone may be looking at this through binoculars or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
The numbers are actually these triangular pennant shapes.
Oh, okay.
But the tips are cut off. So they actually have they're tapered down to a triangle, but then the ends are snipped off, so they don't actually come to a point.
Okay, all right.
And they represent numbers 0 through 9, so each numeral.
Okay.
But
right.
I want to back up for a second. That's a great question. And I'll jump back into this. But why flags, right? When you think about it, why are flags the system? I mean, it seems very antiquated, right? We're here.
Well, it seems like pre-radar communication or radio communication.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Here's the trick with all this stuff. As we mentioned, it's nonverbal, so it transcends languages.
Right.
It's low tech. Anybody knows how to use it.
Mm-hmm.
It's high impact. It can be read from a distance. And it also works even when power goes out on a ship. So think about that.
So if your radio doesn't work,
exactly.
then you
Exactly. So especially if you have a distress signal or a start in a race, like these competitive sailing races and things like that, they're a communication tool, just like any other alphabet.
Okay.
So I just wanted to bring that up. So
Interesting.
The legibility thing that you were just mentioning, squares, then the triangular pennants, this is the whole logic behind all of this.
Okay.
But I also want to talk about, there are some other additional shapes too. There are these swallowtail flags, and then there are these special flags called substitute or repeater flags, and almost like Scrabble pieces, I guess. Those could be used to duplicate letters. So in other words, if you have only one type of flag and you're spelling out a word, you can swap in one of these other flags and it will complete the word if you're spelling something out, for example.
So if I were spelling Mississippi, I would have to have a bunch of those repeater flags.
I wouldn't
probably.
if I were you, I wouldn't name your boat the Mississippi. Although, I don't know. I imagine your boat, though, would probably be a pontoon boat, and it would be welcomed with open arms anywhere in the state of Mississippi.
Okay.
Probably anywhere
right.
up and down the legendary river, now that I think about it.
Okay. All right. I think I'm being set up for something, but it blows my mind. It blows my mind that there could be that many variations of just using a few shapes, and you said colors too, right?
Yeah. So let's talk about the colors. So
All right.
It's a very limited color palette.
Oh, really?
So it's high contrast, which when you think about it, this makes all kinds of sense since it's on the ocean. So there's 5 primary colors: red, blue, yellow, black, white. So that's it. All the flags are some sort of combination of those 5 high contrast colors. So they're high contrast with one another, and they're also high contrast with water, sky, that kind of stuff. And so these colors, in addition to having maximum visibility, and that's not only at sea, think about also things like fog, rain, binoculars, as I mentioned, looking at these flags from a distance. They have these geometric patterns, stripes, crosses, diagonals. And so that allows people to really differentiate them quickly when looking at them. You know, you need a quick read in times of trouble. So meanings. You can't, of course, spell out every single word. You probably, Todd, even though the word Mississippi excites you, you probably don't want to take the time to hang all those flags up, right?
That'd take a lot of flags.
It
would take a whole lot of flags, yeah. And I'd have to remember how to spell it.
So each of the flags has a dual identity or a dual purpose. So, yeah, it stands for a letter or a number, but it also carries a specific message if it's flown by itself.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not going to go through all these. We will post a chart on our episode page, but I'm going to give you a few, okay?
All right.
So Alpha,
yeah,
the A flag, that basically means diver down or keep clear. So you've seen what that flag looks like. That's the red flag with the diagonal white stripe. Van Halen made
from
that
the Van Halen album cover.
I figured if there was
that.
any flag you would know, that would be the one.
Yeah.
So the Alpha flag, just to describe that really quickly, that actually is a little bit of a swallowtail flag, and that is, it's white on the left and then it is blue for like the right 2/3 or 3/4. So it's actually, it's not the diver down flag, but it's very similar to the diver down flag.
Okay.
So keep clear if you see that. But I like you, I prefer the Van Halen version.
Yeah.
This next flag is one that we should know, Todd, and that's whiskey. That's the W flag.
Okay.
So that means I require medical assistance. And then the whiskey flag, it basically is, it's sort of 3 rectangles layered on top of each other.
Okay.
The outer edge is a blue rectangle, then inside of that is a white rectangle, and then inside of that, in the center, is a red rectangle. So it's sort of like a bullseye.
Okay.
So that's a pretty easy flag to identify.
Okay.
Then the L flag, which is Lima.
Uh-huh.
So that means stop your vessel immediately. And that is almost like your Maryland flag, or the flag I like, the Panama flag. It's a flag divided into 4 quadrants, and the upper left and lower right are yellow, and then the upper right and lower left are black. So again, these are like very high visibility flags.
Okay. So the flag names follow the audio alphabet code that's used by military and police officers. Alpha, Beta, blah, 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 Delta,
Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo.
Charlie,
yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's string 2 of these together. What would that look like?
Okay. All right.
Delta and Victor, DV.
DV.
Okay. So Delta
what
is...
would that mean?
Well, Delta, let me describe the flag. So Delta is a blue, imagine an overall blue flag, but then with yellow horizontal edges at the top and bottom.
Okay.
And then Victor is, it's basically a white flag with a red X on it going from corner to corner. So, again, very sort of high contrast.
Okay. So back to Delta Victor.
Yeah, back to Delta and Victor. So that means I am maneuvering with difficulty and require assistance.
Okay.
So probably, the sails are jacked up, or maybe there's a broken rudder or some other form of mechanical distress. So basically, with these examples, Todd, these are great illustrations of the fact that these flags can be flown solo, they can be flown in pairs, or strung in sequences of up to actually 7 flags to create highly detailed messages.
There's no way I could spell Mississippi with just 7
I think you could
flags.
just fly the Mississippi flag if you wanted to.
Oh, you know what? I think you just solved a problem
I think
there.
I did. Well, I'm an innovator, but, people
okay.
still aren't inviting me for a weekend on their boat. So these combinations, they can indicate navigational information, geographical coordinates, vessel names, that kind of stuff, right? So a lot of different utilitarian things. Okay, so how did we get here? What's the history of this? Where did this come from? Because this is something I was wondering about.
Yeah.
So The practice of using these flags dates back to the 17th century, so the 1600s. And they were initially adopted by different naval fleets for basic signaling. And then the British Royal Navy, the empire upon which the sun never sets, they were doing a lot of sailing. So they formalized this early usage during the Anglo-Dutch naval wars. So take that, Holland. Producing a system called the Permanent Fighting Instructions, which included 11 flags for 45 potential signals. So they didn't have these 36 flags yet. So they only had 11.
Okay.
But within that, they figured out a way to have all these different signals using those 11 flags. And then in 1855, efforts to standardize global maritime communication led to the first version of the International Code of Signals, so what we know now. And this system was continually refined over time with updates reflecting advances in navigation, international collaboration, and safety standards. So, like what we talked about, when you're in distress, when you need help, when you are maneuvering your ship or boat in a certain direction or a certain place, it's always good that other people on the water know what's going on. That can avoid a lot of accidents and obviously get you the help you need.
There are no lanes on the ocean.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like the air.
Or traffic lights.
Well, there's
traffic
channel
lights,
markers. I mean, you kind of have lanes.
Okay.
I mean, I've been on enough boats, I at least know that.
Okay.
But, as we talked about earlier, technology continues to advance. We have things like radar, radio, any different version of communication. I'm sure there's going to be more. But you still have this visual clarity. It's a universal language. And this durability of flag-based communication that everybody knows what it is. And it's kept the ICS in active use, especially in navies, commercial fleets, and competitive sailing, which we had mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
So if you think about competitive sailing, you watch these regattas and all this stuff. These ships or I should say boats, they're not really ships. They're too small for that. They're not far from each other. So there's definitely a high chance of colliding if you don't know what's going on, I would think. So all boating people, you can write in and tell me if that's wrong. But I have a feeling you probably don't want another boat running into your boat and then one or more boats sinking. I'm just putting that out there.
I think that's a safe assumption.
All right, let's jump in here.
Okay.
So why is this still useful and relevant?
Yes.
Well, we have GPS. We've talked about that. We all have that on our phones.
Yep.
We have radio equipment on these ships. We have satellite communication. So in spite of all this, these flags have several advantages. Some we hinted at earlier in the episode, right?
Yeah.
This idea of fail-safe communication. They don't require power. They don't require technology.
Yeah.
There's never going to be a compatibility issue, right?
Right. Don't require satellites.
Yeah. Elon Musk can't take down your nautical flags if he doesn't like you.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. He's working on lasers. Immediate visibility, as we talked about, they're highly legible due to their colors from a distance with binoculars or even the naked eye, right? Obviously, if you're close enough, you can see not only the boat, but you can probably see what flags there are that are flying. And if you know the code, you'll know what they're doing.
Is there a standard size for these flags, or do they come in whatever size your boat is?
So signal flags, that's a great question. So they're sort of sized for the proportion of the ship size.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have these cocktail napkin sized flags on this giant ship.
Yeah.
You asked about standard sizes, if there's a single size. It looks to me like there's a handful of sizes. And basically these sizes are in proportion to the size of your ship. So I've seen these things anywhere from, whatever, pennants like 8 inches by 24 inches to 12 by 18 for some of the rectangles, but they can go much, much, much bigger. Like you can get pennants that are up to 6 feet long, for example.
Oh, wow.
Or 48 inches by 72 inches. So in other words, 4 feet by 6 feet for the rectangles. So it really just depends on the size of the boat. That's a great question.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it's sort of like how you can get a country flag that's different sizes, or, a lot of these novelty flags are different sizes. It doesn't look like there's any sort of hard and fast rule. Although,
Okay.
I would think, again, it's in your interest, if you're a boat owner, to get the flags appropriate for the size of your boat, considering they're going to be
Makes
what
sense,
bails
yeah.
you out. I would also add to these flags, I might get a good flare gun. Maybe they offer that as a combo package, although I wouldn't, don't aim your flare at your flags, because that's a recipe for disaster. Exactly. But then you will know what flag to fly after that, unless that's one of the ones that's now on fire. Although fire is highly visible too.
I could see the crew sitting around going, shit. All right, we've burned the A, the M, the D, the L. What can we spell with this?
Yeah, exactly.
Hot dog.
Yeah. Note to all listeners, do not look to Todd and I for nautical safety tips.
Yeah.
Nautical themed drinks,
we'll bring the
yes.
cocktails.
Nautical safety tips, no.
No,
Yeah.
you don't want that.
Yeah. But getting back to why these are still used, universal understanding, as I talked about, there's no language barrier, and also ceremony and tradition. If you think about sailing, there's a lot of ceremony and tradition there. Think about yacht clubs, naval protocols, competitive sailing, as we've talked about. So it's just a common language that is multi-generational and has always existed in nautical communities.
Yeah.
And then practical applications, just to wrap this up. Signaling the start of a race, indicating onboard medical emergencies. As we've talked about, they're just fast, they're highly visible, and they're really reliable, even in bad conditions, right?
Yeah.
So to wrap up, I love nautical flags because they are an excellent example of a blend of beauty, form, and function, which I find to be a compelling example of good communication design that's relevant, centuries after it was invented.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Beauty, form, and function. Those are the hallmarks of the best mixed drinks, too.
Yeah, you're right. Hey, I have an idea. How about a cocktail beauty pageant?
You mean where we line up all the cocktails on the bar and then judge our favorites?
Oh, that's a great idea. You know what? I'm not going to argue with you. It'd just be a waste of time.
Wait, what? Let's start with whiskey.
Is that your favorite liquor?
No, my favorite flag. I'm having a financial emergency. We'll be right back.
That was good.
Hi. We want to take a moment to mention that if you're enjoying this episode, we have an archive of topics ranging from the Olympics to movie posters,
Think Ghostbusters.
iconic images,
Think Bigfoot.
punk music,
The Ramones.
Saturday morning cartoons,
The Pink Panther.
and failed products like OK Soda. Visit our website at twodesignerswalkintoabar.com for full episode notes and visuals, the latest blog content, and to sign up for our newsletter.
Follow us on social media. We can be found on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Find the links on our website or search using the phrase "Two Designers Walk Into a Bar."
Most importantly, leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps more people like you find podcasts like this.
And tell a friend about us. Send them a link to our podcast from your listening platform of choice.
And if you're inclined, buy our merchandise. Stickers, coasters, magnets, t-shirts. We're designers. We make good stuff, and it helps support the show.
Get in touch. Use the contact form on our website or send an email to hello@twodesignerswalkintoabar.com.
We read every message we get. Honest.
And we're available for speaking gigs. Email us to learn more.
Okay, now back to the bar. Well, all right. Thanks, everyone. We're back. Interesting I mean, I'm not a nautical person. I'm not a seafarer. I didn't know all that. I've seen those flags,
Yeah.
but I thought they were mainly, just used for clothing and stuff like
Clothing?
that. So yeah, you would buy it at the marina.
Oh,
and it would
yeah.
spell something.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay, flags.
Yeah.
But no, that's cool. No, I didn't. I'm just kidding. I knew it had to have some meaning, but I had no idea what it was. So. Like my parents used to tell me, I guess it wasn't for me.
That's right. Landlubber. You know what, though, Todd?
Yeah,
Since
yeah,
you
exactly.
love Gilligan's Island so much, I would think that you would have gravitated toward these flags.
You would think. I don't
Did
know.
the
that they
minnow
used
have those? I don't know
yeah.
if they ever.
I don't think. Well, therein lies the
Yeah.
problem, isn't it?
Yep. See?
See? There you go.
Thanks, Professor.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Skipper,
I mean, I
Professor.
would say we could have fixed this shipwreck right away if we had those, but then it wouldn't have gone on for 3 seasons. Right? It would have been
You know what?
one episode.
I was going to say, we're well into this podcast right now, and we haven't fixed that shipwreck yet.
Hey, way to tie it together. Well, no, that was super interesting. And I brought another language, if you will, another visual alphabet.
Yeah, hit me.
that,
I'm curious about this.
I didn't know a lot about. I mean, I think everyone has a bit of a passing knowledge of American Sign Language, also known as ASL. But, I don't know that we know all there is to it because I'm fortunate enough to be able to hear, still a little bit left. So are you. So we don't use this to our knowledge that much. But I learned that there's some things that we do with our hands that may have overlapped here. And so it's interesting. But let me start by telling you a little bit about the early origins, because it's kind of like it took a long time to become American Sign Language. And prior to the birth of that, signs were used in various communities around the world, and they were mainly used in the family, like hearing family members needed to communicate with, in most cases when they learned it, with deaf children. But they were all improvised. There was no consistency. Like they didn't have a club going around.
Right, sure,
saying,
yeah.
teach this to your child. They got through the best way they could. And, that's interesting. Although it wasn't a full language, it showed that we had this innate human drive to communicate visually, which is really the start of how we were integrating people that had hearing challenges. And here's an interesting story, Elliot. You're going to love this.
All right.
You know Martha's Vineyard, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So from the early 18th century, like the 1700s, the island of Martha's Vineyard had this rare recessive gene that caused a high rate of deafness.
Huh.
I didn't know that. As a matter of fact, the town of Chilmark had the highest concentration of deaf people on the island. And at one point, in a section of Chilmark called Squibnocket, I didn't make that up.
Okay.
In Squibnocket, 1/4 of the population was deaf. And so the population was only 60 people, but still, I mean, that's 1/4, 15, is that 15 people were
Wow.
deaf.
Okay.
So the language known as MVSL, Martha's Vineyard Sign Language, developed organically. And, it was kind of, obviously it was due to this recessive genetic trait, but it became this integration of the people with deafness and the people that don't have deafness. And it became this fully integrated bilingual community in the U.S.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, so that sparked an interest in creating a school. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about this in a second. The American School for the Deaf. And many students from Martha's Vineyard actually attended that and helped shape the early ASL in the early 19th century. So now we're up to the 1800s. So really kind of interesting because there was no uniform language, but everybody was kind of improvising. So separately, and probably hundreds of years before that, Native American Plains tribes used this robust system for trade and diplomacy across language barriers. Because if you think about it, so, tribes had different languages.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
They were all their own, little country, basically. So they had to develop systems to stay safe with other tribes and to trade and do things like that. So while that in itself was not a direct ancestor to American Sign Language, it definitely showed that sign communication was not new in North America. It was something that people were using. There was just no sort of organized system for it yet.
You're reminding me of Dances with Wolves. Remember, like, Tatanka.
Oh, yeah. And it's funny you said that because the grammar of sign language, that's a really good example. Dances with Wolves. Kevin Costner was not dancing literally with wolves, right? But that's the communication. So the words are not as robust as we have in the full English language, but it gets across the message.
And it's sort of poetic, I think. Like Dances with Wolves is very poetic.
Yeah, and there's some interesting bits that come along with that about how slang is developed, and I'll tell you about that a little bit. I'm going to make you wait for that one.
Oh, okay.
But the birth of ASL, actually, we can thank the French for the birth of American Sign Language, Elliot.
Okay.
An American guy named Thomas Hopkins Galladay, he was a minister, and he had a neighbor, a little girl who was deaf. Her name was Alice Cogswell, and he was frustrated because he couldn't communicate with her, and he couldn't find ways in the English language to effectively communicate with her. In his frustration, he traveled to France, like you do, and met a guy named Laurent Claire, who was a deaf teacher at the Paris Institute for the Deaf. The French were far ahead of the rest of the world in their sign system, and Claire agreed to return with Galladay to the U.S. to start a school. So that school they started was the one I mentioned a few moments ago in 1817, the American School for the Deaf.
Okay.
And that was outside of Hartford, Connecticut. So at that school, they taught this combination of French Sign Language plus the Martha's Vineyard Sign Language plus home signs. It was really the collecting of all these different signs in one place. Up until then, they all had their little community. So this was the first sort of solidifying of a common sign.
Yeah, they're sort of aggregating everything and trying to put an overall system to it. Okay.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And it grew. Yeah, and it grew because deaf students became deaf teachers. And by 1860, there were over 30 deaf schools in the U.S. And these schools, they became these cultural hubs for people with hearing challenges. They were teaching academics. They were able to form clubs. They were fostering deaf identity and art and storytelling. And they were able to promote this resistance to what's called oralism, which is speech and lip reading. So
yeah, isn't this still a rift today even, I think?
It is. Yeah. You got, and
I've heard about this.
Yeah, and there's a reason why. So the school sort of formalized the grammatical structure and added these things called non-manual markers. Like for the longest time, I really thought sign language was just all in the hands, but it's not. It's the face, it's the eyebrows.
Yeah.
It's what you say, it's your expression that adds more clarity to it. And that became essential for the grammar.
Well, I mean, that makes sense if you hear about, experts who talk about communication, they say 90% of communication isn't verbal.
Yeah.
It's body language and facial expression. And so, yeah, certainly. I mean, these folks can see as well as anyone else. So it makes all kinds of sense.
Right. And so those became what is known as classifiers, the different hand shapes, the particular movements, the size of the shape. And that also helped develop into a wonderful grammatical tool. Now, you mentioned a little bit of controversy there.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to go super deep into this because I think it can go deep. Around the time 1880, so roughly, 20 years after sort of sign language was really growing, there was a conference in Milan, and it was this international gathering of hearing educators, but with no deaf input at all. And they decided at that point to ban sign language from schools.
Oh, wow.
And they fired deaf teachers en masse, just like let all these people go. They made it so oralism, which again was speech and lip reading, was dominant for education. And that was for nearly a century. And their belief, it's not like they were mean people, but their belief was that signing was inferior because they didn't understand it. And this was pushing for deaf people to integrate more into a hearing society. So, I get it, but it was a less effective method, right?
Yeah, deafness isn't something you can see.
Right.
So if you have sign language, that's obviously, maybe they thought it was a stigma, and so they didn't want to have people feel outcast if other people were signing to them, maybe.
They were trying to normalize.
Yeah. This is just an example of sort of the law of unintended consequences, I think.
Yeah.
Right? It's coming from a good place, but it's, if you're not including the people it impacts, you've got to do that, folks.
Okay, think about it like this. There was no burden on the speaker, right?
Right.
The speaker just did what the speaker did.
Yeah.
Burden was on the person with hearing challenges.
Yeah, why are you asking me to learn a new language? I can hear. Doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, right. Like, I'm just talking. You just read my lips.
Right.
But if we didn't have effective lip reading, we would never know what our politicians whisper to each other on BuzzFeed. So I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, or football players on the sidelines during games, right?
Oh, right. That's why you have to pull your jersey up so no one can read your lips, right? Anyway, fast forward, like I said, nearly a century later in 1960, a man named Dr. William Stokoe, who was actually a hearing linguist at Gallaudet University, he published Sign Language Structure.
It's funny because, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I've always heard, I love that you're pronouncing this properly, and I'm really curious because it's obviously named after Gallaudet. It's named after this minister.
Yeah.
But whenever I've heard the university pronounced, it's always Gallaudet. And I think it's just an Anglo butchering.
That's the Anglo version of it. Yeah. And I think equally correct for both, but his name was from French history, so I stuck with Gallaudet on that one.
And also you're snooty.
Well, I'm trying to be.
Okay.
I'm trying to be snooty. But anyway, ASL flourished. It flourished because it had its own syntax and its own phonology and its own grammar, and it morphed and it changed and it became known as English on the hands.
Oh, that's a great expression. I like that.
Well, it's worth pausing here for a second and to say this is American Sign Language. Every country has their own version. Like, you can't just roll up in Paraguay and start speaking English on your hands. Like, they won't understand.
Well, you've got to do it very slowly and very dramatically, and then after the 10th time,
can you sign louder?
Yeah, totally arching your eyebrows and everything, and then after the 10th time, they'll suddenly understand you need a toilet and want a sandwich.
And not in that order, maybe.
Depends how lousy the sandwich is.
Yeah. So ASL developed and it gained in popularity because it became part of visual poetry and visual performance, and the visibility in academic settings grew, and interpreting became a certified profession, which was great for people with hearing challenges. And deaf culture entered pop culture, like theater, poetry, slams, festivals, and now you look at news programs and there's an interpreter there. Yeah. And so it's recognized as a legitimate language now. Again, in the U.S., parts of Canada, and some other territories, but not all over the world. They haven't caught on to our way of speaking yet.
Just give them time.
But they will. So I was interested. I was like, okay, well, with that kind of slow growth, and it kind of really just happened in the sort of second half of the 20th century. What impact did it have on culture? And you might remember a movie called Coda back in 2021. It won the Best Picture at the Oscars.
Yes.
It featured native deaf actors. Yeah.
So do you know what that acronym means?
Yes. Children of Deaf Adults.
I did not know that. I'd never heard of that before the movie.
Yeah.
And obviously CODA is a word unto itself, so it was a really interesting sort of, dual meaning for this film.
And dear listener, you would be forgiven if you didn't immediately recognize that that was the Best Picture of 2021, because that was the same year that Will Smith slapped Chris Rock, and that's all we heard about after that. That was its own particular type of sign language.
I'll say. I got 5 reasons why you're not going to say that again.
What did the hand say to the face?
Slap. That's right. Yeah, that was an interesting evening for sure.
Yeah. So unfortunately, a lot of art was overshadowed that night. But anyway, hey, the movie A Quiet Place and Eternals?
Yeah.
They use ASL as plot devices that build this really interesting visual language as part of that. And of course, social media has allowed deaf creators to connect and to promote their craft. There's deaf TikTokers and deaf YouTubers, and artists are sharing ASL stories and comedy and fashion and activism. So it is a sort of cultural thread that's weaving through pop culture. And there's ASL only plays and films and poetry events like we talked about before. And there's something, this is interesting, it's called visual vernacular, and it's a blend of mime, which, why would you want to do that?
Well, that's ASL. The French influence yet again.
Yeah. Thanks, French, for that. So it's like this storytelling, this visual storytelling. It's a very unique deaf art form. And because it is a living, breathing language, vernaculars continue to develop during segregation. What's known as Black ASL or BASL developed for students that were segregated from other schools, but They were also learning their version of sign language. And something is interesting because there's I mentioned before, there's no real governing body. It continues to develop. So language, as you know, is incredibly dynamic, and it may take a year or so before a slang word gets put into the Webster's dictionary or something like that. Right. But in ASL, slang and signs emerge regularly and quickly, and the community picks them up or starts to use them, and they organically become more popular. So if it's a new word, you might see a new word like, let's say selfie. You may sign that as the word self or selfie, but the sign that has emerged is, imagine you're holding your phone.
Yeah, that's
up,
what I would think. You
face.
Put your phone out in front of you, or your arm out in front of you like you're holding a phone, and you grin at your hand.
Yeah, and that's exactly, So it's something so simple, and, it's a new thing. Hashtag, is pretty simple. You just hold up sort of your index and your middle fingers on both hands and form a hashtag.
Look, I'm holding up my middle finger right now.
I know you got to do both fingers on both hands, dude. Okay. But what's interesting, and again, is it's not, there's no body that says, okay, this is official.
Right,
this is
right.
How
it just kind of it's very liquid and fluid. It just kind of starts.
It's open source.
Yeah. That's a good way. Yeah, it's the Linux of languages.
It's open source yeah. All right, let me leave you with a couple interesting things, because I talked about the grammatical structure, and I find this interesting. Obviously, I don't live with sign language every day, so I'm still kind of understanding it. If I were buying a round of drinks for the bar and you came
tell
late.
me more. I'll be on time.
Well, you're late, so you missed out. So you missed out on this, right?
Okay.
That is known as train go. Sorry. You missed an opportunity. Man. Too bad.
That's great.
But you literally signed train and then go and then sorry.
The train's left the station. Yeah. No, it totally makes sense.
Yeah. Decaf coffee is signed as deaf coffee. Which for some reason.
Okay, interesting.
Spilling the tea. We like to spill some tea here. So it's a sign for gossip, where you put your thumb and your forefingers, both thumbs and both forefingers, and you chatter them together like they're going around in a circle.
Interesting.
And this is one of those where you make the facial expression too, like I've got something
check
super
this
juicy
out.
to tell you.
Yeah, right.
And so it's like
right.
chatter, 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 like check this out. And some new words, sus, you know, the kids are using sus, right? So that's basically you're using your dominant index finger, scratching your forehead.
Yeah,
like,
I'm not so sure about
suspect,
this. Yeah,
right?
what's up?
Yeah, right. Greatest of all time, the goat, you know, that has emerged as an index finger pointing up, and then your dominant hand capping it with a C.
Okay.
Champ. So it's like, you're the greatest of all time.
Yeah, because there is a ASL sign for the animal goat, so it's great
right,
that
not the same.
So it's interesting that even though in spoken English you say the word this exactly the same way,
right,
you know,
right.
there's either way there's context.
Right. And you know, like if you meet someone, you know, you say what's up or sup.
Yeah.
Like the kids are doing. That's both hands on your chest, flicking outward, like you're opening up to them.
That's
like,
interesting.
sup.
Yeah.
And again, your facial expression, you know, demonstrates that as well. Couple last ones that I think you should use, Elliot, at your earliest opportunities. If you want to call someone basic, you take your non-dominant hand, and in my case, our left hands, you put it out flat in front of you, and then you sign a B underneath it.
So like below base level?
Under the line. Yeah, you are basic. You're under
great.
the line.
That's great.
And if you want to ask your wife if she just wants to chill, take 2 C's, like one in each hand, and cross them over your chest, like I'm chilling.
Like the
you
Chanel
know?
logo kind of thing? Or
Yeah, give a Chanel logo across your chest, but you also got to give the facial expression like chill. You know?
Like I just took some mushrooms or whatever.
Yeah,
really
right.
like an edible, I guess, because, you know, mushrooms could do different things to different people.
Glad we had the conversation. I love that story, by the way. Oh, all right. One more. You know, woke is being used a lot pejoratively.
Sure.
But it's not such a bad thing in this particular context. You got your 2 thumbs and index fingers on the side of your face popping open, like, you know, your eyes have popped open. Which means
Right.
And I think everyone knows the sign for bullshit, right? Do you know what that one is, Ellie? Like, everyone learns that one, right? And we should use it frequently, which is, you know, you cross over your dominant hand over your other elbow and make like horns for bull, and then out of that less dominant hand out the backside is just fling out some fingers there. and you have called bullshit on that. So
you know what? That explains most evenings what people are doing to us when they're hearing us
they're
have conversations like this one. Yeah, exactly. Well, so I have another pop culture nugget for you directly related to. So Gallaudet University. Do you know what was invented there in sports?
No, I don't. What?
The football huddle.
Really? So they could sign stuff in the huddle? Oh, wow.
So basically, prior to that, football teams would just sort of line up and, you know, plays would get called out, or they would, you know what the, you know, because it'd be like code, right?
Yeah, right.
But of course, deaf players couldn't do that.
Right.
And so they would sign to one another on the line, but then the other teams started picking up their signs. And so they knew to blitz or do whatever, knew they were going to, you know, run or pass or whatever. So they were at a disadvantage. So then what they would do is they would go into a huddle. So they would form a circle. So, you know, no one could see what they were doing.
Right.
They would then determine what the play was through sign. Then they would come to the line and then they would run the play. And so that now is obviously the standard in American football.
Interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. I love the idea, you know, obviously speakers informed the ASL, the language for the deaf, but I love that there's a little reversal here. Like the signs can become part of our pop culture vocabulary, you know, for people that don't have hearing challenges. And you know, I think that's just more cool communication that what are you doing, by the way? What are you doing?
Oh, me? I'm just over here signing.
Okay, what does waving 2 fingers above your head mean?
You don't need to worry about that. The bartender knows.
Now you're pointing to me, making a cash sign, rubbing your fingers together. Oh no.
Ah, yeah, it looks like you did learn something with all your research. Hey, thanks, pal.
But I didn't learn it fast enough, right? All right. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.